12 Stories. The knowledge, clarity, and insight you have been waiting for.
Last week we ended on this. The humans are playing catch-up. This week the theme is consolidation, and it doesn't arrive the way you'd expect. The CEOs of the largest AI labs in the world agreed on something. The company that just became the most valuable private AI firm in history turns up, by name, in a European bank regulator's warning to the banks it supervises. A compute agreement gets described one way in a filing and another way on X. A separate compute deal is financed for $36 billion, and a federal executive order arrives, voluntary, no licensing, with Anthropic specifically left out of it. A note before we begin: several of this week's stories concern Anthropic. The people who make this show have known contacts there. The editorial calls are made independently of those contacts, and Anthropic has no role in this production. 12 Stories. Let's begin.
Story 1. The Biosecurity Letter. The CEOs of OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and Microsoft AI signed an open letter this week calling for mandatory screening of synthetic DNA orders, customer verification, record-keeping, screening of the synthesis equipment itself. More than 50 co-signers. The letter endorses a specific bill, Cotton Klobuchar, Senate Bill 3741. A confirmed fifth signatory, Alexander Wang of Meta. Some early coverage left him out. What makes this notable isn't the ask itself, it's who's asking. These are companies that compete on nearly every axis: funding, talent, benchmarks, enterprise contracts. They don't agree on much in public. They agreed on this. And the letter's own framing matters. The risk isn't settled capability today. The concern is the trend. Barrier erosion, not present catastrophe. That distinction is load-bearing. Story 2. The same agreement, two descriptions, continued. In Episode 2, we reported a disclosure tension in SpaceX's S1. The filing described the Anthropic compute agreement as running through May 2029. Musk posted on X the same week that it was a 6-month lease with a mutual 90-day cancellation option. That tension didn't resolve this week. It deepened. SpaceX's IPO roadshow runs June 4th through 11th. Pricing is expected around June 11th, with a NASDAQ debut around June 12th, under the ticker SPCX. Musk holds about 85% of the voting control. Anthropic is named in the S1 as a Colossus compute customer. The monthly figure, reported in more than one place, is about $1.25 billion. On June 1st, Musk said it again. The current term is 6 months, not a multi-year lock. Two descriptions, one agreement. The roadshow is now running. Story 3. What Musk said. On the same timeline as the IPO roadshow, Musk posted on X about the Anthropic compute relationship. His words: the deal is currently 6 months. He'd offer a reasonable off-ramp. And SpaceX could reclaim the compute if Anthropic's AI engages in actions that harm humanity. That last part isn't in the S1. It's what Musk said on X during the IPO quiet period, not language in the contract. What a man posts and what a filing says are two different things. This is the first. Story 4. The EO that stuck. In Episode 2, we reported that a draft executive order on Frontier AI, voluntary pre-release review, 90 days, was postponed within 24 hours. It came back, a version of it. On about June 2nd, the president signed an executive order creating a voluntary frontier model review framework. The order explicitly forbids mandatory licensing. The review window is reported at 30 days, down from the 90 in the draft. Anthropic remains excluded from CAISI, the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, whose pre-deployment agreements cover Google, Microsoft, and xAI. The order is voluntary, no licensing, Anthropic outside. The framework exists. Anthropic is not in it. Story 5. The Valuation Crossover. On May 28th, Anthropic closed a $65 billion Series H funding round. Post-money valuation? About $965 billion, just shy of $1 trillion. For the first time, Anthropic's private market valuation tops OpenAI's. OpenAI's last disclosed figure, about $850 billion as of March. A symbolic crossing, noted as such. Story 6. The run rate. In February, Anthropic's revenue run rate was about $14 billion. By May, it had crossed $47 billion, roughly a tripling in 3 months. On about June 1st, Anthropic filed confidentially for an IPO, submitting draft paperwork to the SEC. The public listing could come as soon as this fall. Here's the shape of it, slowly. $14 billion in February, $47 billion in May. 3 months. Story 7. 6 deals, 9 weeks. In 9 weeks, Anthropic has signed 6 structural compute deals. The chips underneath them come down to 3 platforms: Amazon's Trainium, Google's TPUs, and NVIDIA's GPUs. And NVIDIA keeps recurring through SpaceX's Colossus, through Microsoft's Azure, through the new Vera launch. On June 3rd, the Google TPU deal was priced, a $36 billion private credit transaction led by Apollo and Blackstone. 6 deals, 3 platforms, 9 weeks. And that $36 billion wasn't venture capital, it was priced like infrastructure debt. Because that's what it is. Story 8. The price of mythos. Glasswing participants pay $25 per million input tokens and $125 per million output. It's available through the Claude API, Amazon Bedrock, Google Vertex, and Foundry. Pricing is pricing. The numbers are on the record. $25 in, $125 out. Story 9. Opus 4.8. Anthropic's Opus 4.8 scores nearly 89% on SWE Bench Verified and about 69% on SWE Bench Pro. Those benchmark numbers are confirmed against primary sources. Anthropic also states that Opus 4.8 is its best aligned model. That part is the company's own evaluation, not an outside finding, and it isn't settled. At least one independent countersignal is still open. The benchmarks are solid ground. The alignment claim is the company's own. Story 10. OpenAI leaves the house. OpenAI's frontier models and codecs are now generally available on Amazon Bedrock. For the first time, OpenAI's most capable models are reachable outside its primary Azure relationship. This is an industry structure story, not a capability one. OpenAI making its models available through infrastructure it doesn't own or control. Distribution is a form of power, so is concentration. A quieter story this week, but it belongs in the pattern. Story 11. The number that moved. Continued. On May 29th, the United States Space Force awarded SpaceX about $4.2 billion for the SBAMTI constellation, orbital tracking of airborne and missile threats targeted to be operational by 2028. 2 days earlier, a $2.3 billion communications contract. Combined, SpaceX now holds roughly $6.5 billion in Golden Dome work, more than all other vendors put together. This is a direct payoff to Episode 2's Golden Dome story. The program projected at $1.2 trillion over 20 years, against the $175 billion first announced. The pace and the concentration are the story. Story 12. The Dear CEO Letter. On June 3rd, ECB board member Frank Elderson confirmed that the European Central Bank had met with Eurozone lenders the prior week, specifically over the cyber threat from Frontier AI. The model named Mythos. The ECB will send a Dear CEO letter to all the banks it supervises, about 120 significant institutions, demanding proactive defenses with targeted follow-up on individual banks. This is the first time a Eurozone financial supervisor has pressed banks directly over a named AI model. And this is precaution, not active attack. Banks don't currently have direct mythos access. A bank regulator, not a technology regulator. That choice of actor is the story.
12 Stories. The largest AI labs agreed on one thing and named the threat as a trend, not a capability. A compute agreement sits in a filed prospectus and in a post on X, and the two describe different terms. A voluntary executive order arrives, with Anthropic specifically left outside it. A valuation crosses. A run rate triples in 3 months. 6 compute relationships built in 9 weeks. A bank regulator in Frankfurt names a model in a letter to 120 supervised banks. The pieces have been assembling. This week, some of them locked into place. The question isn't whether consolidation is happening. The question is what it's consolidating into. We'll be back next week. Until then, leave a comment and subscribe.
12 Stories. The knowledge, clarity, and insight you have been waiting for.